Hello, my name is Little Boy, and here is my quick review of Enter the Gungeon. This is basically just a new series I have planned, where I just pick a random game that I usually have in, like, my Steam library, and I just make a quick 5-minute-ish review on it, just kind of giving my quick thoughts, and giving an arbitrary review score, and whether I think the game is worth buying or not. So, the first game we are starting off with is, drumroll please, except there's no drumroll because you already know what it is. It is Enter the Gungeon. And I do want to specify that this is one of the very first roguelike games I've ever played. In fact, if I'm correct, this is the second this is the second dungeon crawler I have ever played, behind a not very good game. So that basically means I'm hopping into this review with not many comparisons to make this game to outside of, Minecraft Dungeons, which isn't a very good game to make comparisons to.
Oh, it's disgusting!
So anyway, you're probably just wondering, what are my thoughts on the game? It's honestly super amazing. Honestly, this game is great. I really think it is underrated and kind of vastly underappreciated, especially in comparison to a lot of other roguelikes, which I'll show here in a sec. But for the most part, I just want to start off by talking about the general gameplay itself, and how, honestly, in my opinion, it is really good. Now, the thing is, the gameplay is pretty simple. It is a combination of a bullet heck game combined with a dungeon crawler roguelike. So, the idea is that you have to do a lot of dodging in this game, obviously, as it goes into the bullet heck elements. And it does mean you have way less health in this game, because every hit you take, unless an enemy is jammed, does one hit of damage, and then you have like 6 hearts to start with, or 7 if you're playing Marine. So it's pretty standard, almost archaic. Instead of having like 1,000 health, and then an enemy will do like 347 damage, it only does it by like a very low amount, being like 1 damage, and you having a low amount of health. So it's definitely archaic in that standard. But the big thing about the game is probably that the combat is a lot of fun, because it's very simplistic, but that works really well, given the fact that it is supposed to also be a bullet heck game, and I think those mechanics mesh well with the simple enough shooting that is still really fun to do. I was going to compare it to Minecraft Dungeons, but I realized I've mentioned that game way too many times in this video already. But the reason why the combat is fun is because the shooting and the dodging are both very simple. The shooting, you just press left click and you fire whatever you do, and then you just reload by clicking or pressing R. It's really simple stuff. There's not much to it outside of the special abilities that you're gonna have. And the dodging is also very simple. You pretty much have one move that's really good for dodging, and that is your roll, and it is actually a vital part of the game. You're constantly going to be rolling in this game. It's really important, because you are invulnerable for I think the first half of the animation. You are fully invulnerable, so it is very important to constantly be rolling in this game. So yeah, the gameplay is really fun, which is important in a game like this, because if the combat was not fun, it would get really boring really quickly, especially because sometimes you're going to end up replaying a lot of the levels. But all the combat is fun, and I'm always excited to go into the next room and fight the next bad guy. So overall, yes, the gameplay is fun. Now, I'm going to go a little bit faster on most of these things, because I talked about why the gameplay was so fun for a while. So, the rest of the things I like are the bosses. They're fairly well designed. I like a lot of the attacks, and they're just unique, they're fairly memorable. I like them. Another thing I really appreciate is the art style. It is honestly gorgeous. I love the way this game looks. I'm almost jealous of the way this game looks. The sprite art has aged so well. I feel like sprite art and pixel art is probably the most timeless form of game graphics, And this is a game that really shows that sprite art is never gonna be outdated, because this game looks amazing. And the fact that it is like a 16-bit game, this is a 16-bit game. This is running in the same amount of pixels that a game like Super Mario World is running on. And that is just absurd to me, because this game looks gorgeous. And the last thing I want to touch down on before I make my next major point is the music. It's good. Honestly, it's nothing like super insane, but a lot of the tracks are really good. I love the main menu theme. It sounds amazing. I like the combat music. And just a lot of the music in general is decently memorable, and I think it suits the game very well. So, you know, it really gets you pumped up. So, yeah, I like the music. It's fun. Now, the final point I want to make in this video is probably the most controversial one, and it is on the whole progression system. And this is where this game compares to a lot of the other games that are in the same category as it, like The Binding of Isaac. Now, I've never actually played any game like Enter the Gungeon. I'm pretty sure this is the very first roguelike I've ever played. Yeah, this is the very first roguelike I have ever played before, and this is the second dungeon crawler I've ever played before. So, I haven't really played many, actually, you know, good games in the same caliber as this one, so I don't have much to compare to. But, from what I can tell, the general argument is that the reason why a lot of people, have not gotten hooked into Enter the Gungeon is because the progression is kind of whack-ish. In the sense that in a lot of those other games, you definitely upgrade a lot more. Like, for example, Hades. That's actually one that was super popular, and a lot of people talked about that game, and the reason why a lot of people said that they liked it was because you constantly upgraded your abilities on every run, and every run was a noticeable improvement, at least from what I heard. I've never played Hades before. But in this game, you really don't get that. Now, obviously, you still do upgrade in certain ways. You unlock new NPCs and you unlock new guns that get unlocked in new runs that are usually more powerful. Like, for example, like the Evolver. That is a C-tier weapon that you can unlock, but I would say that that gun is way better than most guns in the C-tier. And that is obviously on purpose, because the idea is that you get a bunch of more overpowered guns in the quality, so that you have a higher chance of getting a better gun, depending on what quality you get. So that's really nice. But for the most part, the big thing is really just that you get better at the game. That's really how you improve at it. You don't get upgrades, you upgrade yourself as a player. And this is where the game's progression becomes controversial, and why a lot of people didn't get hooked on it. It's because simply it was just really difficult for them, and if you couldn't, and a lot of them could not get into this game very competitively, or like, not competitively, but they couldn't get very good at this game, and because of that, they could barely make any progress, because most of the progress is based off of how good at this game you get. To that I say, I feel like the game is not just about getting good at shooting and dodging, but it's also a lot about information, you know, figuring out what enemies do what attacks, which bosses are the easiest, which bosses are the hardest, which guns are actually worth using, and which ones aren't. I feel like you also improve just with your knowledge of the game, because you figure out what is worth doing and what is not worth doing, which NPCs are worth buying items from. So I definitely think because of that, you definitely improve in much more subtle ways that you really don't notice all too much, but I think the game handles this pretty well. Once again, this is probably the biggest con about the game I can notice, although it wasn't a massive issue for me. But yeah, that's how the progression works, and for some people, they really could not enjoy this game because they just kept dying and never making progress, and I can understand why, but I feel like if you really give this game an honest shot and you really try, I definitely think you'll get a lot better at it than you think you will. But yeah, Enter the Gungeon is a very fun, enjoyable game. It's obviously not perfect, but I think most people who play it, even if you're not very good at it, will still really do enjoy it, and I definitely think it is very underrated and totally worth the price of $15. Really, this game is basically a steal. So, that was the video. I hope you enjoyed, and I'll see you later.